Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to Sniper Elite 5. Today, in this all-new and very shiny series, Sniper Elite 5 In-Depth, we'll be taking an in-depth look at the default rifle of the game, the SREM-1. But before we can get into that, I'd like to plug my Discord server real quick. It's a great place to hang out, chat and find games with other snipers, and it'd be pretty swell if you joined. So, without further ado, let's get into this. The SREM-1, or SREM, or SREM, or whatever, the SREM was a prototype pump-action bullpup sniper rifle designed and produced in 1944 by Reginald Shepard and Harold Turpin, who are more famous for the Sten. It feeds from a 6-round internal magazine, which can be loaded with stripper clips, or with individual rounds. Iron sights are of the rear ring front post type. They are relatively clear, but the large scope mount on the side of the weapon can somewhat obscure visibility. In-game, the SREM's advantages come from its ease of use. It has the fastest rate of fire of any of the non-semi-automatic rifles, and a very acceptable muzzle velocity. Its reload times are very good, as are its weapon equip times and ADS speeds. The SREM's accuracy, stability and recoil control are also very good. The weapon is also the quietest of any of the bolt-action rifles. As a side note, from now on, when I say bolt-action rifles, I mean every rifle that isn't semi-automatic, so that obviously includes the SREM. I just think that if I'm going to have to say something like pump and bolt-action sniper rifles for the rest of this series, I'm going to have to remove my own testicles with a Pritt stick, a nail file and a Steely Dan album. The SREM's disadvantages are that it has a low damage at only 108, which is the lowest of any of the bolt-action rifles by quite a significant margin. In addition to this, its recoil recovery is poor, which makes follow-up shots, which should be the SREM's speciality, quite difficult to efficiently do, especially at range. Overall, whilst the SREM is not the best at anything in particular, with every other rifle being able to surpass it in at least one statistic, the SREM is perhaps the best at everything, which I put in italics in my script. It is, to use a very tired phrase, a jack of all trades, but a master of none, and as a result the SREM is the perfect starting rifle, and was my go-to rifle for the duration of the campaign. Now I want to show you some custom setups that I think work rather well on the SREM. The first class setup I wanted to show you is what I used for my playthrough of the campaign, and is a stealth setup which I find suits the SREM rather well. For this setup I like to take armor-piercing rounds because they are a must for opening doors and destroying vehicles, and of course subsonic rounds, which make the SREM ridiculously quiet. I use the M84 scope because it's good, and the extended marksman barrel, which increases damage at the cost of mobility and stability. However, most importantly, it increases muzzle velocity, which is just as well as the Mark II's suppressor that I also use, slashes muzzle velocity, stability and mobility. However, it reduces the audible range of the SREM down to 57 meters without subsonic ammo, which is quieter than Prince Andrew's been since his sexual assault case. I use the thick grip tape, which compromises stability in favour of accuracy. The long travel trigger increases accuracy even more, and to top it off I use the laminated beach construction to rectify my stability issues at the cost of mobility. Having used this setup since the beginning of the game and built on it from the very first workbench up to the very last, I can safely say that this setup is excellent for stealth, without being poor at range either. The mobility is completely and utterly ruined, much like the average American, but when you're playing it tactically it isn't too much of an issue, and thanks to the marksman barrel, the damage has mostly survived the notoriously unlethal stealth attachments I have added. My other setup is a mobility-based setup, designed to make the most out of the SREM's advanced mobility and handling times, and it's quite interesting. I use the short carbine barrel, which increases stability and mobility whilst ruining muzzle velocity. I use the bayonet for the frontal takedowns on elites, and the stock mounted magazine pouch to speed up my already quick reloads. As usual, the thick grip tape is a go-to, and I use the short travel trigger to increase my already speedy fire rate. Finally, to wipe out all the good work I've been doing to improve my accuracy, I use the light elm construction to increase sprint speed. AP rounds are essential, and I also decided to take soft point rounds this time so I could pretend to be a war criminal. In this gameplay I used iron sights, which works rather well, but if you actually want to kill people, a scope could easily be slapped on this thing and it would still maintain most of its speedy handling characteristics. Whilst admittedly not as good as a semi-auto at this sort of run and gun behaviour, the SREM is still admirable and can easily dispose of Nazis at range. Thank you everyone for watching the video. Remember to like, subscribe and comment. It costs you nothing and it's a great way to help out the channel. Stay safe and goodbye.